guys, welcome to part 2 of my series of colonial deconstruction, or I would prefer colonial destruction. This is a statue of the British Queen Victoria. This statue, as I said, it stands in East Parade, downtown Kingston in 2021. If you don't know who Victoria is, well, there's the Victoria Jubilee Hospital. That should ring a bell. She's actually Queen Elizabeth II great-great-grandmother. This is a statue of Admiral George. This statue stands in Spanish Town in 2021. Admiral George was a warlord, not like bounty killer, real warlord. They actually erected that monument in his honor because he was trying to defeat the French. The French were trying to invade Jamaica. The French were trying to capture Jamaica from the British. He was in command of his army, who actually fought against the French. They defeated the French, and as a result, they erected this monument in his honor. So he specialized in bombing ships with cannons to keep your ancestors on the plantation. This was basically a territorial war to keep Jamaica in possession of the British. Admiral statue was erected 220 years ago in 1801. In my opinion, what we see in our society to be a problem says a lot about what we perceive our problems to be and what we will try to fix. Victoria ruled. We didn't elect them. Nobody voted them in as queen. But before we look at the significance of this statue, Sam Sharp was a mastermind of the 1831 uprising that was largely instrumental in bringing about the abolition of slavery. Because of his intelligence and leadership qualities, Sam Sharp became a leader of the Native Baptists in Montego Bay. He encouraged political ideas all over the world. Sam Sharp's uprising was described as one of the longest and most influential of the three emancipation era revolts. It was called the Christmas Rebellion because of the time that the revolt took place, December 27. In this uprising, he basically told people don't go to work, people stopped going to work, people were armed, started destroying properties. They also had a military corps known as the Black Regiment. This Black Regiment further invaded Hills estates, inviting more people to join, more of the enslaved population to join, burning properties on the borders of St. James, setting off fires through Great River Valley in Westmoreland, St. Elizabeth. Apart from the 175,000 euros on military operation, the total cost was estimated to be almost 1.2 million euros, which historians noted would be around 50 million euros today. Now, do you see the context of this catastrophe? 50 million euros estimated today in damage. This is Jamaica. This had to be a powerful and influential rebellion. Sam Sharp rebellion led to a revolution, and of course it led to the Emancipation Act, August 1, 1834. So this Emancipation Day that you celebrate should not be celebrated, in all honesty. What you should celebrate is the fight that Sam Sharp fought. Sam Sharp's uprising threatened the system of colonialism. Sam Sharp's uprising led to imminent economic collapse of the colonial system. The reality is, though, if you kept burning all the plantations, the system of slavery would not exist. The system of slavery would not be sustainable. So, when you fought a system of imperialism, if you don't know that you succeeded, then you will remain mentally defeated. The Sam Sharp uprising was before Victoria became queen. I mean, she didn't make him the hero that he is. So the good thing is that December 27 has now been proclaimed as Sam Sharp's Day by the Governor General. Remember that controversial insignia from the Queen with Archangel stepping on the devil who was a black man? You can check out my video on Jamaica's Governor General controversial insignia. This is the plan of the parish of St. James together with part of the parishes of of Hanover, Westmoreland, St. Elizabeth in 1832. The areas underlined red were those involved in the Christmas Rebellion. We have Westmoreland here, St. James, again, all the areas underlined red were involved in the rebellion. We also have Hanover. This actually shows how extensive Sam Sharp's Christmas Rebellion was, how instrumental it was in creating destruction that was far-reaching. They had to create an act all the way in England to abolish the system of oppression. George William Gordon, a mixed-race Jamaican, was murdered in 1865. This was after the so-called Abolition Act. Why are people being murdered if slavery was abolished? And this was also during Victoria's reign. George William Gordon was a self-educated and landowner in the parish of St. Thomas. His father was Scottish, his mother was black. His father was a Jamaican businessman. He was a businessman. He was also a leading critic of Jamaica's governor at the time, Edward Eyre. George William Gordon decided to enter politics because he felt like he needed to help people. He even subdivided his own lands by selling farm lots to people as cheaply as possible, organized a marketing system through which they could sell their own produce at fair price. He also was very instrumental in assisting Paul Bogle in Morant Bay uprising. He wasn't directly involved, but because he was a critic of the governor at the time, Edward Eyre, he was basically executed out of spite. Gordon was arrested and charged for complicity in what we now call the Morant Bay Rebellion in 1865. He was illegally tried, convicted, sentenced to death. He was murdered on October 23, 1865, during Victoria's reign. George William Gordon was honored a national hero in 1969. His face was featured on the $10 note and the $10 coin, and it remained on it since. He became a national hero 68 years after Victoria's death. Obviously, if the country is not being governed by the people who have the interests of the people at heart, then the heroes and the heroines that we would celebrate would be from another time, which is why they celebrated Victoria, Admiral George. These are not people that we are supposed to be celebrating. These are not people who are written in our history to be celebrated. So I'm still confused as to why we choose to preserve the statue while downtown parade was where a lot of hanging used to take place. Paul Bogle was a firm political supporter of George William Gordon. He marched over 50 miles from Stony Gut to Spanish Town, the capital at the time. Eyre refused to meet with him. On October 7th, Paul Bogle and a group of his supporters marched to the Morant Bay courthouse where two men were being tried. So they actually attempt to disrupt the court proceeding. On October 10th, the police tried to arrest Bogle at Stony Gut. The villagers prevented the arrest from taking place. People were like, nope, you're not going to arrest him. On October 11th, Bogle and about 400 supporters marched into Morant Bay. They raided the police station for arms and attacked the courthouse where the local council was having a meeting. The troops sent by the governor arrived the next day. Then you had the black soldiers of the 1st West India Regiment under the white officers arrived by ship. White soldiers from Newcastle and St. Andrew arrived on foot. Even some Maroons actually went to help the British soldiers to fight against Paul Bogle and the group of people who actually went with him. These Maroons joined in the vicious fight against Paul Bogle and his men. As the protest spread violently through St. Thomas, they got fearful that this would soon affect the whole island. Then they declared martial law. What was declared on the 13th of October, pretty much giving the army freedom to do whatever they wanted to do. Paul Bogle escaped to the hills. Gordon was actually in Kingston during all the events leading up to the rebellion. He was arrested nonetheless, charged with treason, complicity with the protesters, sentenced to death, and hanged. It was only after independence in 1962, along with the perspective allowed by the passage of time, that the contribution of Paul Bogle to the development of the independent Jamaica was fully recognized, not during Victoria's reign. Paul Bogle's house was destroyed by the British after the Morant Bay uprising. We need to get this straight. It's either we celebrate our heroes and denounce the action of the slave masters instead of celebrating the slave masters while celebrating the heroes? Are we confused? Are we in cognitive dissonance? Paul Bogle High School, a school was named in his honor, monument erected at the National Heroes Park in 1965. So even the famous Charles Darwin wanted Edward Eyre to be murdered for the execution of George William Gordon, not Paul Bogle. Why was this? He was a mixed race. Eyre was replaced as governor by John Peter Grant, who arrived in August 1866. That was when they started to have a lot more brown people being elected in Jamaica's House of Assembly. Now you see the root of the brown people, guys.